If you're just starting out in the aquarium hobby, you might be completely overwhelmed by all of the stuff that's out there available. And you're thinking, what do I really need?
Well, in this video, we're going to break it down for you and give you a list of things that we think every fish keeper should have.
Okay, listen, we understand that it would cost an absolute fortune to go out and buy everything that's on this list. And we're not saying that you're a bad fish keeper if you don't have everything that's on this list. All we're saying is get these things if you can, when you can. If you're somebody like me that just worries way too much about stupid, silly things, trust me, if you have all the things on this list, you're gonna sleep much better at night. And the first thing we're going to talk about is one of the staples in the hobby, water conditioner. Let me just say this list isn't in any particular order. We believe that everything on this list is equally important. So just collect this list in whatever order you want. Like I said, water conditioners are one of the biggest staple items in the fish keeping hobby, and I don't care how good your water is or if you're on a well. If you don't have water conditioners in your cabinet, you're just doing this wrong, I'm sorry. Water conditioners like Complete from Fritz do so much more than dechlorinating water. People think that's all they're for, but they're absolutely not. The reason we recommend Complete is because it not only dechlorinates the water, but it also detoxifies ammonia and nitrites. So here's the scenario. It's 9 o'clock on a Saturday. I just made you sing the first line of Piano Man, didn't I? You're welcome. You look into your tank and you're like, oh no, why is my water all cloudy and why are my fish up at the top gasping for air? So you do a water test and realize, oh no, you have a huge ammonia spike for whatever reason. Well, if you have a bottle of this is gonna buy you some time while you figure out what's going on in your tank. I'm not saying put this in your tank and just walk away, problem solved. No, what I'm saying is it's gonna alleviate some of that pressure. It's gonna allow you to take a deep breath and slow down and figure out why the problem's there. Otherwise, your fish might just die. This is why I say, even if you're on a well, you need to have a bottle of this handy, or you could actually use Prime too. That's pretty much the same product, but you have to have one of these around at all times. Don't argue with me, just get it.
So we're trying to prepare you for everything, but are you prepared for your filter to just stop working out of nowhere? The first thing I want to say is that if your filter does quit, it's not time to panic. Your fish are a lot more resilient than you think they are. You do have some time to figure it out, but it is something that you want to take care of quickly, and that's why it's important to have a spare air pump. One thing new fish keepers might not realize is water moving in your aquarium is just as important as it going through sponges and carbon. The water moving makes it possible for there to be an oxygen exchange, which keeps the water safe for your fish so they don't suffocate. If your filter dies and the water stops moving, the oxygen in the water is going to start to deplete. It won't suffocate your fish immediately, but if you don't act fast, it certainly will. Getting the water moving will allow the oxygen to stay in the water and your fish won't suffocate. The water might not be as clean as you want, but at least it'll buy you some time. Get an air pump and an air stone and have it on hand just in case. Or better yet, run it along with your filter, because if your filter were to just go out for whatever reason, at least the air pump is still working until the water gets dirty.
Lisa was just talking about having an air pump and air stone sitting around in case you need to create some water movement. But what if you need to set up an emergency tank? You're gonna want a little bit more than just an air stone. There's plenty of reasons to set up an emergency tank. Maybe you had a fish get injured that needs to be isolated so he can heal, or maybe you had a surprise batch of fry and you wanna save them. This is where it would be nice to have a spare sponge filter. And I'm not just talking about having one sitting on the shelf waiting. I'm talking about having one in a tank running. I always like to keep an extra sponge filter running in one of our tanks. This allows me to have that filter good and seated if I need to set something up really quick. I realize I have a fish that's hurt, and if I don't take him out of the tank, he's just gonna get picked on by all the other fish until he dies. So I go grab a spare 10-gallon tank, which is another great thing to have on hand, by the way. I put that sponge filter in there, which is already seeded and will boost the cycle, and I can keep that fish in there long term until he heals.
What's one thing that heaters, no matter what brand or how much they cost, have in common? They break. It's true, heaters break, and unfortunately, it never seems to happen when it's convenient. It almost always happens when the stores are closed, or you could live in an area like we do that doesn't have a pet store nearby. So what do? Well, that's when having a spare heater comes in handy, and it could mean life or death for your fish. Yes, it's true that many of the fish we keep will be fine if the heater is out for a few hours or maybe even a day, but some fish like my discus will almost instantly start to show serious signs of stress if the temperature were to drop. If my heater fails at 9 o'clock on a Sunday, me and my fish are going to be so glad if I have a spare one that I can just throw right in. I know, heaters are expensive and it's a hard sell to just go out and buy one to have in the cabinet and you're not even using it. But trust me when I tell you, it is something you do not want to have to go through, and your fish will be so thankful that you have that spare heater if you have to go through it.
Lisa and I just moved into this property in North Carolina, and let me tell you, we're out in the middle of nowhere. That was completely intentional, by the way. I've lived here for 2 months and we haven't had any power outages yet, but I would imagine that if we do have one, it's not gonna come right back on. It's probably gonna be out for a bit. But the good thing is, I have a plan for if that happens. If power goes out here and it looks like it's gonna be out for a while, I'll go right into battery mode. How do you know if it's gonna be out for a while? Well, you don't. It's just a guess. Like, if it goes out during a huge storm at 8 p.m. on a Saturday night, I'm gonna be thinking, we better start hooking up batteries. But if it's 11 o'clock in the morning on a Tuesday and it's a clear and sunny day, I'll think, hey, they're probably just doing some work. Give it a little bit and it'll come right back on. But the truth is, you really don't know. So just be prepared just in case. We have these giant batteries that we got from Aqua a while back, and they're exactly what we'll be using in that situation. I'll put a link to the video I did about these up in the corner and in the description. But I'm gonna be honest, these batteries are ridiculously expensive. You don't have to spend all that money. You can keep your tanks running with simple battery-operated air pumps like these that run off D-size batteries, or even USB air pumps that you could hook up to your laptop if you had to. The point is, think about what you're gonna do if your power's out long term. I've done several videos on this topic, and some of the techniques are crazy expensive, like gas-powered generators, or even worse, whole house generators that you have to take a second mortgage out to get. But there's inexpensive options out there. Just do your research and have a plan in place. This way, if your power's out for 5 days, you're gonna be so glad you did that research and spent that money.
We've mentioned a couple times in this video scenarios of where you may have to take your fish out of the tank and stick them in another one to heal, or maybe you just needed another one for babies to grow out. Otherwise, they'll get eaten. Well, that's when it'll be very convenient to have a spare tank laying around. I'm not talking about something elaborate, just a tank, something small like a 10-gallon. A 10-gallon is a great size to have as a spare because it's big enough for most fish to be in temporarily, and it's not so big that it'll take up too much space in your house. Plus, you can pick one up at Petco for 10 bucks when they do their $1 per gallon sale. Now, I want you to listen to me very carefully. I'm just trying to help you out. You have to trust me. Don't be that person that says, well, I'll just grab a 10-gallon and I'll set it up and keep it running. This way it's instantly ready if I need it. We're fish keepers and we're all a little crazy. We can't look at a tank that's running and ready for fish and not put fish in there. What almost always happens is you have your spare tank running, but then you see some really cute fish at the pet store that you just gotta have, and you're like, oh, I've got that 10-gallon. Once you do this, the tank is no longer a spare and something you'll use just in case. Trust me, get the 10-gallon, put it down in the cabinet, and keep it there till you need it. When your fish gets hurt or you have babies, you're gonna be so glad you have it. Trust me.
So there you go. Now you know what you need to keep on hand so that you can be prepared for everything.
Wait. We talked about equipment to have on hand, but what about medications?
Well, that's a good point. We'll have to do that one next week. So make sure you're subscribed so that you don't miss out on that. We'll talk all about the medications that we keep on hand just in case surprise things pop up. So that's it. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.